I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, July the 9th, and a wild western video that they start the week off with, and we were all kind of expecting things to get a little bit stronger this week on those green yearlings coming off of those big grazing areas. Now we're talking western video, so predominantly the western part of the United States is where the bulk of their consignments come from. The best yearlings that they had sell was up in that western Nebraska type area there. We didn't see a lot of Flint Hill or Osage type cattle. Of course, there's so many people trying to get those. You're liable to have a head on out in those gravel roads looking for them. But those western Nebraska sand hills type cattle, the yearlings turned out right there, I tell you what, and they did set some new highs. We've been talking kind of the low 140s for some light 8-weight type grass yearling steers coming the rest of this summer. And all of a sudden, before it was 9 o'clock in the morning, your western video market had established those same type cattle, of course, up a little bit further in the northern plains, up into the 900 weights. So basically, they moved from selling those low 140 prices on your light 8 weights up to the 9 weights, and your heifers bringing basically what we thought was steer price before. And that's predominantly in western Nebraska, but usually your Flint Hill cattle, the good ones, will bring just as much as that. But still got 2 more days left on the western video, the big one that they have in Reno, Nevada. You talk about quality. Just every deal is just the best quality of cattle that you can find anywhere. You talk about a class act, the way they run that western video. It's worth your time just to tune in and watch it either online at WVM Cattle or on dvauction.com. We take their online bids. They're also on satellite TV. But they just are a class act about everything that they do on there. Most of their representation of the consignments are from the most reputable auction markets, livestock auction markets in the western part of the United States, and that kind of keeps your reps from stepping on each other's toes and kind of staying mad at each other, because as you guys know, if you're getting a set of cattle, you're going to get some commission on a set of cattle in the country that you haven't had before. Somebody's pissed off because somebody got those cattle sometime in the past, and they're mad about it, or the guys that bought them last year or the year before. Nobody's happy. But I tell you what, whenever you use your western part of the United States reputable sale barn markets, those are basically cattle that they can't get back through the ring, and so they all kind of have their trade areas. They work those areas. Everybody likes each other, or at least acts like they do, and has a good time there. Get to hear some outstanding auctioneers: Rick Machado, John Rogers, Max Oliveira, just the great auctioneers there in the western part of the United States, and the video quality is outstanding. It's like watching a western movie. A lot of times, if you look in the backdrop, you see the beautiful mountains and the setting on those videos. It's all professionally done, but it's a lot of fun to watch that western video market. Let's talk about the board. I'm going to give you some quotes off western video, particular quotes, and some early superior week in the Rockies quotes here after we get done talking about your board and your fat cattle. But the board to open the week with: August live cattle futures down 85 cents. We still think we might have established a bottom late last week there, and actually 2 weeks ago on your cash fat cattle. But we think maybe that your futures market is destined to go up now. We did see some gains in your feeder cattle, but 106.15 is where your August settled for the day. October was down just 67 cents at 107.40. August feeder cattle up 7 cents at 138.90, and September up a nickel at 138.75. The weighted average on last week's holiday week fat cattle trade in your 5-area negotiated trade. They had 72,000 head sell. That compares to 72,800 sell the prior week and 158,200 a year ago, where they basically had 2 weeks trades bunched up into one. But your Packers became fairly aggressive late on Wednesday, right prior to the 4th of July. We didn't see any Friday trade really. Everybody was kind of gone or out of pocket. But they were wanting some cattle, and the highest prices that we saw happened late in the trading session. But your live steers in the 5-area feeding region ranged in a wide range from 107 all the way up to 115. Mostly from 108 to 113.50, which is still pretty wide range, but there's a big premium for your northern feedlot areas because they're short of market ready cattle right now. If you look at 130, 40, 50 days ago, they were underwater. They were just during the worst of the floods and the bad weather that they experienced there in the early spring, and just nobody placing any cattle right then. Now they will be getting into some more market ready cattle as we get further, like into August maybe, and it may carry over into September and the early fall, depending on how those cattle performed, and it's kind of just varies depending on exactly where you were at and how the conditions were. But your southern plains traded almost entirely at 109, but we did see some 110 late in the trading session there Wednesday before the 4th of July, and that's a significant sign. But your northern areas traded mostly from 112 to 113.5. But your weighted average on live steers in your 5-area feeding region was 111.24, so significant live trade in the northern plains helped that weighted average quite a bit. That was up $1.11 compared to the previous week, so we're starting to get some of that back a little bit. So we actually think we established that bottom 2 weeks prior at the 108 that we saw. But your dress steers and heifers traded in a more narrow range, which is unusual than the live, but from 177 to 182, mostly at 180. But your dressed weighted average in your 5 areas on dress steers 180.09. That was up $1.07 from the previous week's trade. Nationwide negotiated 87,000 head of cattle, which it doesn't seem like a whole lot, 87,000 head for the entire nation, when we slaughter close to 500,000 steers and heifers every week. So you know that we're not getting very much of the negotiated trade that's setting the market. But of that 87,000 head nationwide, only 5% of them were for the 15 to 30 day delivery. So these packers, some of them kind of hand to mouth, and did hear that some of the cattle that traded on Wednesday before the 4th of July are already dead, and they're going to be getting pretty aggressive here later this week too. So hint, hint, guys, the few of you guys that still sell on the open negotiated market, some of you marketing cooperatives, it's time to dig those heels in and gain some market position here as we move further into this dog days of summer. But let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. I mentioned we had that Western Video started out their big Reno sale for the summer. I'm going to give you a couple of individual quotes there. First, I want to talk about the Superior Video Auction. They're having their week in the Rockies at Loveland, Colorado now. And they were selling mostly calves, a lot of calves in the southeast and South Texas, just kind of kicking that deal off. But here Tuesday morning, right off the bat, they're going to be on yearling cattle off grass. And they've got several of those cattle in the Osage and in the heart of the Flint Hills. And we're going to further establish what that market is. Now, a bulk of those cattle will sell in the country private treaty, but they haven't sold yet, and kind of having a standoff right now. The heck of it is, the buyers that are looking to buy those cattle private treaty in that vast grazing area, they want the best for those grazers too. And those guys are still not making the break even on most of those cattle, and they're not used to losing money on that, and a lot of them don't hedge. And so they're kind of just giving them a little space here as we feel like this market's coming to them just a little bit, and they're wanting the best for those guys too. But these are the most desirable feeder cattle of the whole year, as these green grass yearlings that we're seeing coming out of the Flint Hills, the Osage, moving up into the few that they trade in the Sand Hills. That's mostly cow country up there, but they do turn yearlings out there too. But also you get further west over in the foothills of the Rockies, and all the way down into New Mexico. But those cattle that sell from now through early fall, those yearlings that's been turned out there, have not been supplementally fed, just eating native grass, salt and mineral and natural spring water and fresh mountain air. Those are the best feeding cattle of the whole year. But I told you they did start out with some calves on Superior. We haven't sold any big drags of calves for a while, but this one particular consignment on Superior's Week in Rocky sale sold on Monday morning. The M&K Farm steers, 85 steer calves in Esteline, Texas, which is where the speed trap is. If you guys know where that's at, if you're driving from Amarillo to Fort Worth, they've nabbed me many times, but hasn't seemed quite as bad the last few years as it used to be. But 85 steer calves, not weaned, right off the cow, 580-pound base weight to deliver in late October. These cattle have all the bells and whistles. They're the best quality, out of the best genetics you can get. They are non-hormone treated. They're all natural so far. Everything's right with them, which it's easier to do that on calves, especially that are still on the cow, because they haven't weaned them yet and run into the stress and some of the health problems you get from that. Nevertheless, they've got all the bells and whistles, jumped through every hoop. I think they had every program on them you could have. But 85 of those steer calves weighing 580, late October, $170 in Esteline, Texas. And then that's a pretty good quote on some fall delivery calves. Now I want to talk about your Western video, and I want to talk about the hunter cattle that are in Lusk, Wyoming. They are home-raised yearling steers. Home-raised yearling steers, all one raise in there, and you can see the picture there. The best quality, the condition will be outstanding. These are for a mid-August delivery in Lusk, Wyoming, which might sound like a wild place there, but you start to get into some feedlots up there in that part of the country, and you're not really too far away. There are no special programs on these cattle right here. I'm going to give you a whopping price, and you're going to say, oh, that's on some of those special deals. No, I'm going to start off. I'm going to give you one of those too, but this is just, and I won't call them commodity cattle because they're fancy, home-raised yearlings. Been turned out there all summer so far. No special programs to speak of. Just, like I said, eating native grass, natural spring water, mountain air right there. Getting a little salt and mineral, but that's it. But these hunter cattle, they are represented by Crawford Livestock Market, Crawford, Nebraska. But 180 of these 1,000-pound, weighing a grand base weight, to deliver in mid-August, 141.50. Wow, no special programs. Now, you want to talk about some special program cattle. How about these McNutt cattle in Ringgold, Nebraska? These are home-raised yearling steers. They're turned out up in that part of the country too. These are for mid-September delivery. They've got all the programs. They're verified natural, non-hormone treated cattle. These cattle would fit just about any kind of special program you'd want to get them into, your Angus deal or whatever you want. But home-raised yearlings, McNutt cattle, Ringgold, Nebraska, 280 head of them, base weight of 990 pounds for mid-September delivery, 153.50. Whew. Now let's talk about some brick and mortar sales that they had on Monday. Okay, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma National Stockyards had 7,400 head on Monday. Feeder steers were $1 to $5 higher than the sale that they did have right before the 4th of July a week ago, Monday. Feeder heifers $3 higher. I tell you what, it's starting to get pretty darn hot. We haven't seen a whole lot of heat really this summer, but it's starting to get hot and sticky around most places and it is affecting your market for these calves. A lot of them unweaned here. Your fresh spring-born calves, they're new crop calves, $2 to $6 lower on those, and the bulk of the loss was on your steer cattle right there. But still, pretty good sale, especially on yearling feeders at Oklahoma City. Joplin Regional Stockyard still selling cattle again this week. 4,300 head there. Feeder cattle steady to $3 higher, and calves just steady there. Going to give you a couple of individual quotes for Monday sales. National Livestock Commission in Oklahoma City sold 180 steers on Monday, weighed 860 pounds at $138.75. And the biggest quote we had on Monday was out of Bluegrass Stockyard South, Stanford, Kentucky. 123 steers, weighed 854, $139.95, splitting hairs down there when they got in the short rows on those cattle. But that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.